Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics on Random. Egberto Will is your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We're going to have a great show for you today. We have a great interview, a substantial interview with a ex-Tea Party Republican congressperson from Ohio. I think it went pretty well. I gave a little excerpt of it earlier today as the blog of the day, where we went ahead and showed that, we actually kind of agreed that printing money, in effect, quantitative easing and all these other methods of throwing more money into our domain could actually be useful. So we're going to have that. But, I want to start today before we get to the show and before I actually start with the show with something that I saw on TV today that I think is it just showed it. It just gave me a warm feeling on the inside. And the fact that it came from a young person, the fact that this young person thought about doing this really touched me, and I wanted to go and expose it. I sent her a note on her GoFundMe page. I hope she responds because I'd love to see where that thinking process came from. But check this out.
Ashley Lawrence is a senior in Kentucky and decided to help members of the deaf and hard of hearing back in March by making masks with a clear plastic window. Since then, her project has actually taken off. It's reaching people all over the world. Claire Kopsky of WLEX in Kentucky has this report.
You may remember this picture, an Eastern Kentucky University senior studying education for the deaf and hard of hearing who started a project making masks for that very community. In the last 30 days, she scored a job in Tampa working with elementary students who are deaf and hard of hearing, was chosen to be her university's commencement speaker, and has answered a lot of emails.
It's been a month and there's been 10,000 emails. And at some point, there were like 1,000 emails a day.
The requests for her masks with the clear window poured in from all 50 states and 6 of the 7 continents.
It had to have been at least over 20,000 because some people were asking for 1, some people were asking for 10. We had one email that came in that said, we need 1,000 for our staff.
But out of the tens of thousands of requests, she only filled a few.
We shipped out 100 masks to our local community, and then everyone else, we just started sending tutorials.
As she read request after request from the deaf and hard of hearing community and those who just wanted to share a smile, she realized teaching others to make the masks themselves was more important.
It's beyond just the giving of the masks, it's the awareness, which is something that I had never thought would happen when I originally started this.
That awareness became her mission.
We need to think about those populations that we don't think about all the time, and we need to start making life in general more accessible for everyone. It's no different than a ramp at a restaurant. You may not use it, but for someone who needs it, that is the best restaurant to go to because they don't have to think about how to get upstairs or anything like that. It's just that accessibility all the time.
All the time for everyone.
Let me tell you, when I saw that little piece, I was doing a little something and I heard it. Apparently, they aired it last week as well. But what was so impressive with this young woman? First of all, she goes ahead. She comes up with this idea. She is empathetic to those people who read lips. But if you're wearing a mask, you can't read lips. So there's a whole lot of people that the fact of wearing a mask is a problem. So what does she do? She comes up with this invention. She puts a clear thing that people can see somebody's movement. It grows on, right? It explodes. People start to like it. They start to contact her about this. Did she go ahead and immediately try to say, well, I can make a hell of a lot of bucks right there as these orders started to come in? That's not what she did. She started a GoFundMe page. She wanted $3,000 or something like that. She got the money, and did she keep that GoFundMe going all the while to see what else she could? No. She said this was a project. She cut it right there, and that was the end of it. Now, she didn't go ahead and say, let me go ahead and maximize my profit potential on this particular pandemic and just try to reap the benefit like corporations have done with the ventilators, like corporations have done with the masks that went from 25 cents to $1.25 to more than that, to several dollars each. They didn't do the evil thing these corporations are doing when there is a pandemic. We have a pandemic and people are dying. And these profiteers, these corporate people decide, oh, the demand has increased, and now we are going to take everything you're worth. The ventilators that were sold were bought from the government at $2,000 to $3,000. Oh, no, 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 no. We're going to charge $25,000 or $50,000. It's capitalism. That's how it is. Supply and demand. Whatever the market will bear. And where there's a need, that's what we'll do. This beautiful young woman comes up with an invention. And she thought about it because of the people she interacted with. Empathetic young woman. This young woman then says, I am going to go ahead and do something with it. I mean, that touched me. Look, in the long run, it would be great if a corporation picked it up who has the funds to really put it out there and then give those things out at cost. Or even the government goes ahead and subsidizes a company to go ahead and do this great idea she had. But the fact that her first thought process wasn't to monopolize on this particular thing, to screw all the people who are ill or all the people who in trying not to get ill. That was so beautiful of what that young lady, and I would love for her to, I hope she gets my email, because I would love to highlight the beauty of her thought process, the beauty of her inner being, to say, I am not going to use this pandemic as something to just be a profiteer on. That was just beautiful. Now, it reminds me of something that another contributor, another supporter of Politics Done Right sent me over the weekend. And as I am speaking, I'm trying to scroll to that article that he sent me, because when he sent me that article, that as well was touching, because he tagged me on it and said, hey, check this out, because it defeats everything people want to tell you about capitalism. They like to say, oh, guess what? We people are greedy. You remember that thing with that thing on Wall Street, that story, Gecko, when Gecko said, it's all about greed? Well, no, my friend. No, my friend, it's not all about greed. There are good people out there. There are good people out there that the first thing they think about isn't profit, isn't profiteering, isn't taking advantage of you. I am really trying to find that. I want to find out. Oh, here it goes. The Guardian had an article, and this came from Anand Bhatt. Anand, a supporter of Politics Done Right. He said, Egberto, you got to see this. And this is the story here. Let me go ahead and put that on the screen. The story of it is The Lord of the Flies. What happened when 6 boys were shipwrecked for 15 months? You see, you can theorize how humans behave. Is it the way capitalists behave, or is it the way inclusivity, a camaraderie, a trying to work together? Is that what really happens? And what is it that brings out the other things? It is a bad seed. You know what they talk about? You put a dirty apple, a rotten apple in a barrel, it has a tendency to screw up the whole barrel. So people may say, hey, but people have been living on this planet for a long time and fighting among each other. True. What's the genesis of that evil, though? The bad apple. And there's this story that Anand Bhatt found on The Guardian that shows 6 boys got marooned on an island. And did they fight each other for support? No. They came together, they worked collaboratively, and they did something. People, let's not allow an economic system to screw with our humanity, because that is what has happened. They have infused in the minds of many that we are intrinsically evil, that we are intrinsically greedy, that somehow we want to take advantage of the other, or we would take every opportunity to take advantage of the other. That young woman that I just showed you, she has not yet been polluted by a business school. She has not yet been polluted by the evils of capitalism. She has not yet been polluted by all those things that tell her, get the best of what you can. Get the best of what you can. Take advantage. You see, those people that preach that, those are the evil ones. They convince you that that is the way you need to be. That is the way you are supposed to be. And if you are that way, it becomes your new normal, your normalcy. Don't believe it. Humanity is good. I've always been a humanist for a reason. Because after I've gone through all these other things, I've realized that evil does not come from within. Evil comes from without. Always remember that. People are good, whomever they are, whatever they look like. The one good thing I've seen of most people is that they're good absent external forces that work on them. Anyhow, I really wanted to bring that up. So what is the show today? Title of the show today is Nice Tea Party Republican Talks Economy, Print Money, COVID-19, and more. Economic update. Former Ohio Republican Congressman Jim Renacci, the author of the book The GOP's Lost Decade, discussed economics, healthcare, and COVID-19. Economic update is as well. If we get some time after his talk, we'll go ahead and do a little bit, based on what you guys have to say. If a Tea Party Republican can agree on many progressive issues, even if not explicitly, we can get somewhere. Former Ohio Republican Congressman Jim Renacci, the author of the book The GOP's Lost Decade, discussed economics, healthcare, COVID-19. He agrees that we can print money to aid in recovery. I mean, it wasn't quite easy to say that, but once he agreed that, wait a minute, it can't, as long as you are the sovereign currency, you can do as you please, then there's no reason for Americans to suffer in this upcoming depression. In fact, there need not be a depression if we forget about ideology and we do what's necessary to prop up everybody. There will be a depression if we don't do MMT. There will be a depression if in the next few weeks we don't start sending money to every single American. There will be a depression because the spending power would learn. What we need to do is start sending money to, well, we'll talk about that afterwards. Let's go ahead and listen to El Señor Jim Renacci, and then we'll take it from there, brothers and sisters. Let's go ahead and do that.
Welcome to another edition of Politics Done Right. I'm here with Congressman, Republican Congressman, Jim Renacci, I should say former Congressman. How are you doing today, Congressman?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Well, look, one of the reasons that I wanted to talk to you is because you wrote a new book, and that book is titled, it made a hell of a lot of sense to me, right? It's titled The GOP's Lost Decade, and you can see that on the screen right now, The GOP's Lost Decade. Why did you write this book?
Well, look, I was a businessman for almost 3 decades, went to Washington because I was frustrated with how Washington was working, spent 8 years, 4 terms in Washington. After the 6th year, I realized that Washington was broken, decided to come back home, and then I didn't want to let get away the memoirs from my 8 years as to why I left, why it's broken, and how really the GOP, who came storming in 2010, especially on the side of debts and deficits, that we were going to get our debts and deficits straightened out, how we were able to let a complete decade go and not get anything accomplished, except for the Tax Cut and Jobs bill, which was done. Even that was done based on a what I call the funny way things get done in Washington. It wasn't even normal business.
Well, as it turns out, I love the way you said you got to Washington. If I understand the book correctly, you said that you owned, I think, a GM, one of the GM dealerships, and because of the way the bailout for GM worked out, you were one of the people that were cut. So back in 2010, I believe, during the 2010 election, you came with the Tea Party wave. And in as much as you're not really a Tea Party fanatic, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's funny. When I first ran, there were Tea Party candidates that I was running against, and And I was considered, I was a business guy, so I was considered not a Tea Party guy. I ran in a 4-way primary, won that election, and then all of a sudden after I won, I became the Tea Party guy. But really, you're right. I was somebody who believed in fiscal responsibility. But let's face it, I believe that in your personal life, I believe that in your business life, and I believe government should be fiscally responsible as well. And that's what was my real driver for going to Washington.
Now, I'd like you to tell me a little bit about the book. Tell me a little bit about why do you think the GOP lost a decade? And then I want to then challenge a couple of tenets with you, civilly, of course, because as you know, you believe I have all your, I respect you because again, you believe in talking to people. In as much as I found some of what you've said rather ideological, I like that you entertain conversation.
Yeah, well, let's face it. What I've often said is we all have opinions. We all want to get to the same place. We can disagree, but we can respectfully disagree. But at the same time, we want to get to the same place in a lot of ways. And even though we can disagree, we don't have to give up principles and values to get things accomplished. But in Washington, too often, both sides take their corner, and all the guys and gals in the middle are lost, and that's what's so unfair.
That is so true, and that's what I like about what you said. Now, you said that one of the genesis of you getting into Congress was that GM just sent you a letter. In fact, it was the first part of your book, and in scanning the book, I didn't have a lot of time to go through it. I'm like, wow, he started with the letter. Tell us a little bit about that. What drew your ire from that letter?
Well, let's face it. I was a business guy. I was running multiple businesses. I was a serial entrepreneur. I had a General Motors dealership. I was a turnaround guy. I took businesses that were failing and helped them stabilize and come back. And that's what I did with this GM dealership. General Motors actually came to me early on and said, we'd love you to take over this GM dealership. It has problems. We know you're one of the people who can turn it around. And I did. And I was working with them. I agreed to even turn around and build a brand new location. So I agreed to do a lot of things they had asked me to do. At the same time, in 2009, all of a sudden they made the decision that the federal government took over General Motors, made the decision they were going to get rid of dealerships. General Motors told me I had no problem. I was one of the people that was doing the right things. And then lo and behold, in June of 2019, I get this letter that says, from General Motors saying, you are no longer going to be part of the General Motors family. And it was a shock to me. But what really caused me more grief was I contacted my congressman at the time. Now, I hadn't dealt much with Congress, but I called my congressman. He came to meet with me. He was a Democrat congressman, a good guy. And we talked and we walked around the dealership. And he told me that he was going to help me get my dealership back. And I respected that. And but I was also told, don't trust those people in Washington. Now, it wasn't just the Democrats. I mean, I was being told, don't trust those people in Washington. And so I watched the voting that was going on in my office. And there was a vote that was coming up to reinstate my dealership, along with many other dealers across the country. And that congressman who had promised me he would help me voted against that piece of legislation. And that's what really, caused me to say, Paul, this place is broken. Washington is broken. You can't be trusted. I called him, left him a message he didn't pick up. And I said, not only did you lie to me, you can't be trusted, and I'm going to remove you from office. It was that much for him. Not as much for me. I had 58 employees that were counting on me to keep that business running. And so I was fired up. And that was really the reason I ran. I jumped into a national race that I never expected. There was millions of dollars thrown at me, against me, calling me things that just weren't true, but that's the way politics work. And I ended up defeating this guy and going to Washington.
Yeah, that was quite interesting. Now tell me, what should the GOP, in your opinion, have done, why specifically, in a few bullet points, why specifically do you think they lost this decade, in your opinion?
Well, if you look back in 2009 and 2010, the majority changed. Republicans took over the House of Representatives. There were a lot of business people. There were a lot of people who realized that we had to start coming together. You know, in business, you may not agree with everything that has to be done, but you're going to always do what's best for the business and the employees that work for you, because that's the only way you'll survive. And you have to look to the future, not just to the next election. And in Washington, what happened was all these new members, men and women, come to Washington, and we start thinking we're going to change things. We're going to reduce the debts and deficits. We're going to get an immigration system that works. We're going to do all the things that are necessary. And 10 years later, we did nothing. So we lost a complete decade, and it was my decade. I lost a decade out of my life trying to change things. And now I realize that the system is broken and probably can't be changed.
What is interesting is you and I agree on that 100%. The system is broken. There are two rails. And I think you came into Congress in an ideological fashion, the same way a lot of us on the left side of the aisle come in an ideological fashion. And what we find out is that there's a certain gravity within Washington itself. And I call it the two-track system, right? The left track and the right track. But guess what you find with the left track and the right track? They all move in the same direction. In other words, you weren't going to go and change just as much as me as a lefty isn't going to go up there and change anything unless we have a true cataclysmic event as we have now with COVID-19. So before I go ahead and let's say challenge a few, let's say, conservative concepts, I would love to hear how would you like to see us get out of COVID-19? You've already said that the GOP has lost the decade, and I think if guys like you had spoken up personally, if guys like you had spoken up more of you spoken up, right? We probably could have come to some good compromises. How do we though build up use COVID-19 as a catalyst to a better America?
Well, I still think, and when you get to my final chapter in my book, you'll see that I do put out the answers. We got to get government working the way it's supposed to work. We got to have discussion. I mean, I say in my book that bipartisanship is not a problem, and it shouldn't be.
Right.
Well,
I love that.
Well, every first morning every week, we had a bipartisan meeting where Republicans and Democrats, a good friend of mine, John Carney, who's now the governor of Delaware, we started the group. We would talk about where and how we could work together to get things accomplished. And I can tell you that there was a lot of good discussion in that group. But when the group left and went on its own, then the political world took over and leadership. Now, the difference was, and one of the things that I was always proud of, I didn't need the job. So when I went to Washington, when I would get a call from the Republican leadership and they would say, Renacci, what are you doing here? I co-sponsored bills that they just didn't like. And I said, well, are they good bills? Yeah, but we can't do them. Well, that's a problem. And I think in the end, the best way you can do that is break the system back to where it should be. Every hearing, have hearings. We don't have hearings anymore. And when you have hearings, here's the problem with hearings. When the Republicans are in charge, they can name 4 of the 5 witnesses, which means they put the witnesses in that they want to say are going to tell their message. And when the Democrats, who are now in charge, have a hearing, they put their 4 witnesses in. So when we had when we had the majority, they would put 4 witnesses in that would talk about they were all slanted toward the Republican theme, and then the Democrats would put 1 witness in. Well, they're doing that now. The Democrats are going to lose a decade now, by the way, because what's going to happen is they're going to slant everything their way. So let me give you an example. Today, if you look at how we're going to fix COVID-19, you have the Democrat Senate saying we want to, pay people $2,000 a month. You have the Republican Senate with a whole nother position. You have the Republican House who wants to encourage business to be able to, grow their business. And you have the Republican or the Democrat Senate who wants to bail out municipalities and states and reverse the Tax Cut and Jobs Bill. So if you think about that, you have four different bodies in two of the major bodies that are absolutely going in different directions because nobody's having hearings, nobody's working together, and nobody's discussing ways they can work together.
I want to challenge you on a few things. And specifically, I think I have a tenet that a message I put out there all the time. And I say you have to think people first and then fit business for what best suits people. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think you have to do both.
What I'm saying, I don't think you can do both, in my opinion. Please correct me if you don't agree. But I don't think this is parallel but sequential. But in other words, I think we have to first picture what is best for people. When I say people, I mean humanity, and then the economic structure built around that. Shouldn't that be the way we look at it from a moral standpoint?
Well, look, I do think we always need to consider people, absolutely. But at the same time, the best way in a capitalist society is that business has to be able to survive so that people can grow and prosper. Look, if you look at my life, I was the poorest of poor. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I wore hand-me-down clothes to a school. So I also saw an opportunity to live the American dream. And at the same time, I took people with me. So if you look at my history in business, there are several people that started out like me that I took them with me. And I think in the end, business is what gave me the opportunity to help others. And now those others got to help others. And there's a way of making it work. But I think without business, you can't help people because without tax revenue, you can't help people. So it's an interesting circle. But I would also tell you the best example I can give you, and there are good business and bad businesses. When I lost my Chevy dealership, I had 58 people that worked for me that would have drove to Washington, D.C. to defend me. And I think those are the kind of business, that's a business mentality where you're working together with the people to change and move America forward.
Now, Congressman, let me first say, first of all, I think you're exceptional. And the reason I'm saying that is I think you have to understand that first, your exceptionality to see why you are able to perform within a capitalist society. Unfortunately, I don't think 99% of Americans share that and share what you're able to bring. So again, I have to ask and that's the reason I simply always say we have to look at humanity first, because those of us who are able to be very independent and go off and do things, yes, we can do them. But shouldn't we have to be more? There's a part of your book that I want to go over. You said that one of the big costs that regulations bring to you is that you have to. Your cars, when you're selling a car, it has a $2,000 addition on that car because of healthcare. And I agree with you. It shouldn't be there. But the solutions to problems like that, in your spirit, let's not have to have that cost. In my sphere, it's let's detach that away from you. And because what are you doing in healthcare? What are you doing in a lot of these other areas? You shouldn't be, in my humble opinion. Don't you think if we decoupled things like healthcare and social programs from business, which you are great at, would make a better and more an economy that functions better?
The only problem is government doesn't look. So the government system is broken. So here's why I would disagree with you, but would say I think this is an area that we should talk about. The reason government system is broken is because government does only look. And I hate to say this because some of the members of Congress are still my friends, but you'll read it in my book. If you're there more than 8 years, you're part of the problem. Because if you can stand and that's Republicans and Democrats, by the way, if they can stand the system to be there, then they're part of the problem because the system is broken. So the system doesn't work in the best interest of you and me. The system works in the best interest of the system. And if you decouple it, you've now put something into a bad system that's going to get worse.
But you were there, Congressman. My contention is better than I have more faith in you than you have in you. In other words, my contention is that if you wanted to buck the system, you had 90-something guys go up there. And you're a very sensible guy. And in listening to your rationality right now, I think you could have made a difference. I honestly think you could have made a difference, as well as several Democrats out there. I think when you come from the tenet that you say government doesn't work, that is almost saying we the people don't work. I came from another country. One of the reasons I came here is we the people could actually get things done. And I think we the people is supposed to be the government. And if it's not there right now, I think we have to get in there like you tried to do and do something about it. And you know what? You didn't have to. You're a rich guy. You didn't have to do that.
You hit the nail on the head. We the people will make it work, but we the people are not there. So what happens in government is you get there, and if you try and buck the system in government, remember, especially if you move to the middle. If you move, and by the way, we're polarized. I say this in my book too. You know, one of the problems with the House and even the Senate, but one of the problems with the House is that we gerrymandered the districts all across the country so that Republicans have strong districts, Democrats have strong districts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my district was a what they called in the one of the districts that I had to always fight for. You know, I was an R+2. And people say, "Oh, that's an R district." Well, wait a minute. You're either going to be an R or a D. But if you're inside the R5 or the D5, you're in a district that you have
it's
to
competitive.
talk to people. Right. And you have to be able to work with people. So if you go to my district, you'll find that I was in an R2 district and I won by 4 points, my second race. And then I turned it into an I won by 38. I had Democrat mayors endorsing me. All right. And that's because I would listen to them and I would work with them. But I was a different person. You're right. If you're in a far left district or a far right district, you don't have to listen to anybody because you're going to end up always getting elected no matter what you do.
No, Congressman, and that's the point that I was trying to make, that if you go in there, you see, you shouldn't be calling yourself a Republican or a Democrat. You should be calling yourself a fixer. You shouldn't be talking about going to the middle because the middle is a mythical place, right? There's no middle. It's policy by policy by policy. In other words, what policies do you support? And I think, again, given that let me give an example. We have COVID-19, and I want to hear, before we close this out, I want to hear your suggestions for COVID-19, because that is one of the major issues that I want to get opinion from a more conservative person from. A lot of people are fighting right now. Should we give basic income for now or not? Should we bail out blue states or not? And I think these are silly arguments, right? I saw people, in fact, with all due respect, I saw a tweet that I don't know if you put it out or retweeted or something that said something to the effect of, let's not bail out states that are poorly run. Well, or all those states that take, as Cuomo said, that every single year they take more than they actually give into the federal coffers, all those states that don't educate their people, or all those states like Texas, the state that I'm in, where 1 million people are uninsured and die prematurely, they have good fiscal numbers because they don't take care of their people. Are we supposed to then believe that somehow we shouldn't, for these guys that put more into the system than they take out, not really give them back some of what they put in?
So again, what I always say, and I did tweet that out, I think we should take care of the states in their COVID-19 crisis. And there are issues that are affected by every state in COVID-19. But there are states that haven't done enough. And I'll use Ohio as an example. Ohio was told their unemployment system was not solvent in 2019. And what they did, they didn't fix it because it wasn't a problem. It wasn't an emergency. It was only funded about 30% of what it needed. So now they go into COVID-19, and now their unemployment system is a mess in Ohio. And they're probably going to be insolvent. So should federal dollars go to Ohio, and again, that's my state, to fix an unemployment problem that they should have fixed on their own, or should it go to Ohio to fix a COVID-19 problem? That's where I look at it.
Philosophical differences. We are Americans. I say yes. In other words, yes, I look at it as an insurance policy. And that is where I talk about, and I think I could convince you as a congressman to say yes. Because what we're going to find is every single state is going to have things that they've done stupidly, in my humble opinion. And I say, let's use, if we are printing money like crazy, which we are, and which we can afford to do, it's not like we're going to get buckets of dollars like we had in Germany, because if there's no scarcity, you can't get inflation. And what we need here is, it would be nice if we got a little bit of scarcity of something so you can't have inflation. I know it doesn't go with your purview as a businessman because it kind of seems like people are getting something for nothing, but actually it's helping you too. So I say yes.
Yeah. So, and again, the difference is I would probably sit and listen to you, and we probably would come up with a compromise to move forward. That doesn't mean I would disagree with you, and that's probably the difference. But that's the business person in me, because I realize to move forward, you do need a compromise. But I will also tell you what I fear more than anything. Do you have children?
Yes, I do. Med school.
Okay.
That's expensive, yeah.
Right. So I have 3 children. I don't have a grandchild yet, but who's going to pay for all this? I mean, at some point, you've got to put fiscal responsibility back into the budget.
Congressman, you and I know better than that. You are a very smart, economically aware person. And that is, nobody has to pay for it. I mean, I know it sounds strange, but you know deep inside that I'm telling you a fact. When we had quantitative easing, nobody really paid for that. The thing about it is, what faith you have in your dollar, what faith you have in the economic system, and whether there is scarcity. That's all that really matters. We can't tell that out loudly because we don't want abuse. There's a MMT economist. Her name is Stephanie Kelton, and she points out that there's a $685 billion slack, meaning at another inflated $685 billion in the economy. That is when scarcity comes into play and we get into that runaway inflation point that you're talking about.
Well, what's even worse, though, you have said something, and I 100% agree with you. As long as there is comfort and the monetary, the dollar is what people look at as strength, we're fine. When I said, one of the things I talked about in my book is that we needed, forget about the president coming every year and doing a State of the Union. We needed a fiscal State of the Union address. Mm-hmm. And I tried to push that just so people understand what we're spending, why we're spending it, where it's going. And I had people say to me, Renacci, you'll cause the collapse of the economic system if you push that. I had Republicans and Democrats tell me that. So I went to, and I said, what are you talking about? They go, well, go talk to Standard & Poor's or go talk to one of the credit ratings and see what they say. So I flew to New York, which I always did, and I sat down with the head of Standard & Poor's, and he said to me, Congressman, look, as long as the United States is looked at as a secure currency, we'll be fine. But when the currency turns, and by the way, that's where China was going with all this. If China or one of these other countries become the currency that everybody looks toward, then the United States, then we're going to be in trouble with all the debt deficits we have.
And he's right. The thing about it is there isn't a person other than a country other than China right now that presents a problem in that regard. Unfortunately, we have China going to South America, Africa, Central America, and all these places building their goodwill, with us doing exactly the opposite. And you just said the magic. If we are the sovereign currency, we can really do as we please, and in effect pump up our economy. The problem is we are no longer really interested in saving our people. We're internationalists right now. Not that that is a bad thing, but in a lot of ways, what we do is not for your small company, even though it's several $1 million, but for the big corporations, they look at things a bit differently. But I enjoy speaking to you, Congressman, because you are, unlike many others, a thinker. And I know that, you'll sit down and look at the mere fact that you went out there to Washington says much. Yeah. I mean, went out to New York to speak to Standards and Poor's says much. None of those other Congress people are doing that.
No, but you know what? I always try to get to the facts, and I always love to listen. In our one of the things I loved about our bipartisan meetings, I used to tell people, they say, why do you go to those things? I said, because I want to hear why they think we're wrong, or I want them to hear why I think they're wrong. And in the end, I actually sometimes came out of the meetings and said, you know what? Now I understand. I'm wrong. But that's how it works.
Well, Congressman, I don't have much time here, so I'm going to ask you to do something real quickly for me. Give me your quick solutions to COVID-19, pumping this economy back up.
Well, look, we've already started. I do think we have to balance health with the economy. You just can't close everything up. Some states did. One thing beautiful about our country is we have 50 different models. So we're going to be able to see a model. Some states shut down. Some states opened up sooner. I think in the end, there's got to be balance. I think we got to listen. I think we got to talk to economists and health professionals, and we got to take the best track, which is best for everyone. That's difficult in politics. I understand that. But the best track for everyone, as my son, who is a doctor at Mount Sinai in New York, would tell you, the best track for everyone will probably mean there will be more deaths, but it also means that we'll have an economy that will grow out and work as well. Now, a month and a half ago, he would have told me the only track is to shut everything down. But I think he's starting to realize from a healthcare professional, there's got to be balance.
I don't know if I quite, when you say balance, we still have the essential workers out there. So we're really not into a shutdown. The thing about it is, I get concerned about where balance is compared to an economy, etc. I don't think there's a problem with pausing the economy to quickly make debts as small as possible and then restarting later. The only problem I think in restarting an economy is exactly what's happening now. All those guys that are running to Washington to take advantage of what's going on right now. But again, right there is something else we'll have to talk about at another time. I want folks to go out and get the book, The GOP's Lost Decade. It's a good book, thus far from the parts that I've read. And Congressman Jim Renacci, I don't know if I probably did it wrong. I like that you are willing to have a civil discussion. I disagree with some of what I've seen so far, but I think I would be able to convince you of some of the particular issues. Maybe you can convince me of a few as well. So I'd like to talk to you again at some other time, Congressman.
That would be great. And just one little other thing. Remember, everybody's decision is always based on the economic condition they're in. So if they don't have a job or they're losing their business, they want to go back to work. And that's why I said you almost have to listen to everybody. But I do respect your opinion as well. And I think I could convince you of some things as well. And you could convince me. And let's do that. Let's talk again.
Jim Renacci, former Ohio Congressman and author of The GOP's Lost Decade. I really enjoyed talking to you, my friend.
I did the same. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. I enjoyed speaking to Jim. I think Jim is really a nice guy. There are ideological differences there, and that's the biggest thing. But like I said on the Daily Coast earlier today, and folks, Daily Coast is another progressive rag that we should be supporting. It's dailycoast.com, DAILYKOS.com. I write there. I'm a contributing editor there as well. It's a very good site, insightful from a whole lot of good people doing good work out there. Other good place to go is opednews.com. Opednews.com. Support all these sites. Also, democraticunderground.com. Democraticunderground.com. We have to have the internet populated by these different sites so that as the rage comes by November, the social space, the internet space, is not solely represented by some sort of alternative facts. As Brother Rudnin would always say, one of the things I love with what Rudnin does, if you take a look at the amount of links he puts out there and he throws it out there, some people, why are you constantly sending those things? He's doing what is going to help the progressive space and everybody by being a promoter of valid information that's corroborated. So you ought to be doing the same as well. You ought to be sharing politics done right. You ought to be sharing items from Daily Coast, Op-Ed News, good articles from the New York Times, good articles from the Washington Post. All these places have great reporters. As an institution, they're flawed. But as individuals who get things right, there are a lot of them out there. So let's not leave it. I have relatives that I've noticed started doing a whole lot of posting. Relatives who have stopped for a while started back posting. It dawns on me that they understand what's going on. Not they, the individual, but that the masters that run them, the right-wing masters, have put down the edict. Guys, you have to be out there spreading the false word. Of course, they don't think it's false. They think it's real. That's fine. But you now have to be out there putting the real information out there. You ought to be spreading our words. All right, let me go ahead and welcome everybody. Michael Rudnin, welcome aboard. Derek Bell, Troy Astro, Mike Cisak, let's see, AVQ. Avangion Q. I just wanted to mess with you, AVQ. Derek Bell. Let's see. I think I got CSEC already. Kyle Eaton. Let's see. Who else is here? I know I saw a lot more. Lawrence Sims. Okay. Bruce Pollard is back from Dallas. Welcome aboard back, Bruce. Let's see. Para ver quién más está aquí. Lee Grant, of course, my brother Lee Grant is always here as well. And Daniel Ledo, welcome aboard, Daniel Ledo. Curtis Jacobs, my brother-in-law, welcome aboard. Let's see who else is here. I think I got everybody. Michael Dean Newton, welcome, Michael. Welcome, Michael. Oh, Michael says, scientists test sewage to track COVID. You know, I saw that article last week, or not necessarily the article, but I saw it last week. Thank you for telling me, AVQ. I saw the article last week, and you know that's pretty ingenious, right? Because pipes flow. I mean, that is a good network. I mean, it sounds nasty and cruddy, but I think that's a really smart thing to do. You can kind of see where your pockets are based on how much COVID you'll see in sewage water and where it's coming from. So, you know, it sounds nasty, but it's true. You could do that. Let's see. All right, let's see. Michael, the virus does not readily spread through wastewater systems. I imagine if you don't bathe in it or you don't touch the water, you're all right. But as far as if you're playing in sewage water with COVID infections, I don't know. Let's see. Michael Rudnin says, have a great day. Get sufficient funding to complete the idea, end funding, and start on making sure the idea becomes a success. That's great. Daniel Ledo said, okay, see why he likes this story now. It's not that he cares that this woman was helping people. He smells an opportunity to make false equivalences to evils of capitalism. No, capitalism is, in effect, evil. There's nothing moral about capitalism. I mean, if the outcomes that comes from not caring about the environment, if the outcomes that comes from not caring about people, if the outcomes that comes where your only tenet is a maximization of profits for the shareholders, the maximization of bonuses, etc., for the executives, without the care of other stakeholders like consumers and workers, employees, then of course the system is inherently evil. I mean, it's not even a question. It has no soul. Now, regulations give capitalism directions to prevent the harm that it creates. That's a fact. It's not even up for debate. It's not up for debate. If the only thing that you care for is profit, it means you do whatever you must do for profit. Regulations curtail that what you would do for profits. It's not up for debate, Daniel Lado. Only one that continues to allow a system to snow them can believe otherwise. Okay, good job, young lady. Yes, I love that young woman. I hope I hear from her. But I don't know if I will, because you know how that goes sometimes. She may want to have nothing to do with politics. Folks, if you're just joining us, please do remember to share, because that is the way we learn. And that is the way we don't allow something like what Ledo just said to come into the psyche. We have to know reality. We ought to understand reality. Michael Rudnin, when a utopian idea comes around, my first reaction is that if our society strives towards that idea, society will be improved, and will the people, whether or not will measure be achieved. I love that you say, that's a form of don't go for what you think is possible. Go for what you think is best. And then what's possible eventually will converge onto what's best. Michael Rudnin, ingenious, sir. Derek Bell, much agreed. And as you can see, Derek Bell agreed with you. Troy Astro, Howard Dollars, that's never worked. When Congress stops printing money, there will be a depression. Michael Rudnin, very right. Lee Grant, I think evil is in our hearts, not by design, but by inference, we learn those things. Fear, that's not to say that fear doesn't cause us to do bad things. And that's what the right wing understand, right? Fear will allow you to kill your mother. Okay? Some people, fear will allow them to do that. Not that they don't love their mother, not that they don't love all these things. But what we're saying is that is what self-preservation have a tendency to supersede everything. And it doesn't come with hate. But if you then build a society on an economic system, not on necessary preservation, but on absolute dominance, then that's a problem. Okay, let's go ahead and talk to... All right, I'm skipping a few, and forgive me, but I just want to we only have about 2 more minutes for me to do this. I'm paying my guys, and I won't open until I know I can give them a safe place to work. But when I do know, they will hold on to their money unless... I get you. I understand, Derek. I understand. And good that you're paying your guys. You're a good person. It would be very helpful if I could get tested. Texas, they only really don't want people really tested. They don't want it tested because they don't want to know how bad the problem is. Welcome again, Senor Bruce Pollard, my brother. Michael Rudnin says, Mike Zizek says, government is often the cause of many of our problems. So Michael Rudnin just says he is the cause of many of our problems. Why is he saying that? Because the people that's in government are the people he sends. And he's right about that. Those people that he sends have created a hell of a lot of problems. So Michael Rudnin, join the team and let's send the right kind of people so that we can make that statement false, that government is no longer the problem and government is actually the solutions, my brother. Let's see. Derek Bell, actually 3 Trump is... I'm going to skip that. Okay, para ver. Rudnin, I'm skipping some of yours there as well because, everybody is seeing those already. Egberto, your picks are for Trump's war crimes. This might be a good topic for a show. Yeah, it's a good topic for a show. I would probably have to do that when there's not a hell of a lot to talk about for one reason only. My thing is I want us to move away from knocking Trump and start going on to what we are going to do. And the reason why is Trump is a has-been. Trump has no soul. Trump is evil. Trump is not going to do anything good for society. Let's work on trying to tell Americans, if they go with us, what are we going to provide? I'm done with Trump. Trump is just not even human. You know, not even human. Okay, Derek Bell, let's see. Okay, let's see. Mike C. like, Daniel, I'm not, but no, okay, that's not to be read. Michael Redden, coronavirus also reminds me of the Spanish Kansas flu in that their RO and fatality rates are similar. I don't know what this Spanish flu I know. I didn't know it was called Kansas, but hey, I learn from you guys all of the time. Let's see what else. That was a lead from Michael Newton's express, or the virus does not really spread. Okay. Let's see. Daniel Ledo, the morality of capitalism is freedom, but you don't think. The morality of capitalism is not freedom. The morality of free enterprise is freedom. Capitalism and freedom are not the same thing. And one other thing that people need to understand, China is a capitalist country. Would you consider China free? It's not. It does not practice free enterprise. It practices capitalism. That's the difference. It's right there for you to see if you choose to see it and not follow what's been pre-programmed in you so that that evil can continue. That's a fact, my dear brother. Maywood, hello from Long Beach. Maywood, I didn't get to salute you earlier on, so hi, my dear friend. All right, Michael Rodnan, as comes the pandemics countries. Oh, you know, we're about to fall off a deep end right now, Rednan. The 1918 pandemic is called the Spanish flu because Spain was first reported. The pandemic started with an U.S. Army base in Kansas. I get it. Okay, and Curtis says, you got it about our leader. Anyway, folks, we're gotta get out of here. We gotta get out of here. Anyhow, but before we go, I want to remind you guys that this is a show that needs your support. So please go to store.politicsdoneright.com. And what can you get at store.politicsdoneright.com other than our t-shirts, our cups, mugs? Here's what our cup looks like, right? Where we got it? There we go. This is what and of course, get our book. As I see it, Class Warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom. You want to learn about exactly what's happening in this economy? It still holds true, my friend. It still holds true. And going a little bit forward, you can go to. What I really need for folks to do is continue to be subscribers. I think right now we are at 101 on Patreon. I don't quite remember how many we are on PayPal. I got to look that up because I know there are some updates for that one on PayPal. But what we need is about 1,000 subscribers altogether, both on Patreon and PayPal combined. Here is the link. Please become a subscriber at patreon.com/politicsdoneright. If you're listening to us on podcast, it is patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Again, that is patreon.com/politicsdoneright. You can also contribute or sequentially give at our PayPal address, which is paypal.me/politicsdoneright. Again, that is paypal.me/politicsdoneright. And of course, go shop at our store, folks, store.politicsdoneright.com, store.politicsdoneright.com, and get one of our products. Every product that you buy, you get something to wear. It says, I support independent media, I support Politics Done Right. And at the same time, you know that what you're doing is making sure that we can continue doing what we do. So please, folks, go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright, patreon.com/Politics Done Right. This is the end of the show, and you know how I end this baby. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and guess what? I am what? Out! I'm Egberto Willies, host of Politics Done Right, an independent news program. I post several news videos of interest every day. I ask you so kindly to subscribe to my channel, and please leave me some comments. Thank you very much.